Some people claim to sense when something bad is about to happen, but in these cases it went far beyond a feeling. These are real stories of famous people who clearly predicted their own deaths through words, actions, or final warnings before it actually happened. In this video, we'll look at 5 disturbing cases that make you question if they somehow knew what was coming. It was October 8, 2011, in Chicago, Illinois. Mikey Welsh, a 40-year-old artist and former bassist for the band Weezer, had just checked into the Raffaello Hotel. He was in town for Riot Fest, where Weezer was set to perform. For Mikey, this trip wasn't just about music. It was a rare vacation. He wanted to reconnect with old friends, enjoy the show, and take a break from his regular life in Vermont, where he worked as a full-time painter. But Mikey never made it to the festival. When checkout time came and went, hotel staff became concerned. Around 1 p.m., they entered his room and found him unresponsive. He wasn't breathing. Authorities were called, but it was already too late. At the time, the official cause of death hadn't been confirmed. Investigators suspected substance use, but toxicology results would take weeks. What stood out, however, was something Mikey had posted on social media just days before. On September 26, 2011, 12 days before his death, he tweeted, "Dreamt I died in Chicago next weekend. Heart attack in my sleep. Need to write my will today." He later added, "Correction, the weekend after next." He died on the weekend he mentioned in the city he named, just as he had tweeted. That wasn't the only unsettling message. Earlier, he had listed one of his paintings for $250 on Facebook, writing, "If I am still alive at time of purchase, price to increase exponentially if I expire prematurely." These weren't just strange coincidences, they sounded like warnings. Mikey Welsh was born on April 20th, 1971 in Syracuse, New York. He got his start in Boston's music scene, playing bass in local bands and eventually touring with acts like Juliana Hatfield and Verbena. In 1997, he joined a project led by Weezer frontman Rivers Cuomo. By 1998, Mikey became a full-time member of Weezer after Matt Sharp left. He played on the band's 2001 release, The Green Album, which included hits like Island in the Sun and Hashpipe. But behind the scenes, Mikey was dealing with serious mental health struggles. Years of substance use and untreated conditions, including bipolar disorder and PTSD, had taken their toll. During a European tour in 2001, his mental health worsened. He lost weight and became overwhelmed. After returning to the U.S., he planned to see a psychiatrist. But before that, he had to finish a few shows, including one on The Tonight Show. That ended up being his final performance with the band. Not long after, Mikey experienced a serious mental health crisis. He was hospitalized, placed in a coma, and later admitted to a psychiatric facility. That incident ended his time in Weezer. By August 2001, he was replaced by Scott Schreiner. Mikey briefly returned to music in 2002 with the Kickovers, but soon left the industry. He spoke openly about how uncomfortable he felt being monitored in recording studios. Instead, he focused on painting. Living in Vermont with his wife and 2 sons, he created large, abstract works using his hands. He also built sculptures from discarded objects and collaborated with snowboard brands. Despite leaving the music world, Mikey stayed in touch with former bandmates. He made appearances at their shows and in 2010 even joined them on stage in Vermont. In July 2011, he brought a painting to a Weezer concert in New York and ended up playing guitar during one song, quietly and briefly, but enough to be noticed by longtime fans. Just a week before traveling to Chicago, Mikey posted online about his excitement. He had just visited Nashville and was looking forward to seeing Weezer perform. But then came the tweet, the one that now feels hard to ignore. Weezer responded to the news the same day. On social media, they described him as fearless and deeply creative. The next night, they played their Riot Fest set as planned and included a tribute to Mikey during the show. Mikey Welsh's life was complicated, filled with creativity, struggles, and moments of joy. But it ended in a way that felt almost too precise. He had said goodbye long before anyone knew it. It was June 23, 2021, in Barcelona, Spain. John McAfee, the 75-year-old tech pioneer known for creating the first commercial antivirus software, was found dead in his prison cell at Bryans 2, a high-security facility. Authorities stated it appeared to be self-inflicted, but the timing and his past statements led many to question what really happened. McAfee was no stranger to controversy. His life was filled with legal issues, unpredictable behavior, and claims that powerful people were after him. Just hours before he died, a Spanish court approved his extradition to the United States, where he faced multiple charges. 10 counts related to taxes in Tennessee, and 7 more involving alleged financial misconduct in New York. If convicted, he was looking at a sentence that could have kept him in prison for the rest of his life. He had been held in Spain since October 2020, when he was arrested at Barcelona's airport while trying to fly to Istanbul. Even before that, McAfee had warned that something like this might happen. In November 2019, he tweeted that U.S. officials were out to get him, and if he was ever found dead, it wasn't by his own choice. He even got a tattoo on his right arm that said, "Whackty" as a message. In October 2020, after being jailed in Spain, he tweeted again. He said he was doing fine, enjoying the food and company, but he made it clear, if he were to die in a way that looked self-inflicted, it wouldn't be by his own hand. He even referenced the death of Jeffrey Epstein, which had already caused widespread suspicion. McAfee's lawyer said he showed no signs of distress. Just days before, he seemed optimistic. Then minutes after his death was reported, something strange happened. A post appeared on his official Instagram account, a black image with a white letter Q. It was a reference to the QAnon conspiracy group known for believing in secret plots by powerful people. The post was quickly deleted, and shortly after, the entire Instagram account vanished. No one has ever confirmed who had access to it. His wife, Janice, believed he was targeted. On Father's Day, just days before his death, she posted online that the U.S. government wanted him to die in prison. She said he was outspoken, refused to be silenced, and was being punished for it. She added that prison had affected his health, but insisted he would never end his own life. Before his death, McAfee faced intense scrutiny. He was wanted for questioning in Belize after a neighbor's death, denied claims from a critical documentary, and was arrested in the Dominican Republic for carrying weapons. Known for eccentric behavior, he claimed to have 47 children and a $100 million fortune. He was also linked, without proof, to a YouTube channel showing drone footage of Epstein's island. While in Spanish custody, McAfee wrote to Janice that life in prison there was far better than in the U.S., saying he was treated like a human being. But even Spain's prisons weren't safe. In the weeks before McAfee's death, several inmates died in similar ways, including 2 at Bryan's 2. One inmate had even been fatally attacked by another prisoner. Attempts were made to revive McAfee, but he was pronounced dead soon after. The official cause was listed as a self-inflicted incident, though toxicology tests were ordered. Despite no confirmed signs of foul play, many remain suspicious. His cryptic tweets, the tattoo, the letter Q, and repeated claims that he would never end his own life led people to wonder if there was more to the story. Online, his 2019 whacked post was shared tens of thousands of times. Some even repeated the phrase, "McAfee didn't kill himself." No solid proof has come out to confirm those suspicions. But for many, the mystery around John McAfee didn't end with his death. It only grew deeper. It was November 15, 2017, in Tucson, Arizona. Gustav Elijah R., known to fans as Lil Peep, was 21 years old and in the middle of a 33-city tour across the United States. That night, he was supposed to perform at a local venue, but he never got on stage. Hours before the show, he was found unresponsive on his tour bus. He was later confirmed dead. Lil Peep wasn't just a rising artist. He had become a voice for young people dealing with emotional struggles. His music blended emo, punk, and trap, and he spoke honestly about things like loneliness, heartbreak, and identity. His fans felt seen through his lyrics. But the same things he sang about were also things he lived with every day. Born on November 1, 1996 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Peep was raised on Long Island and came from both American and Swedish roots. He started uploading songs to SoundCloud in 2013 under the name Trap Goose before changing it to Lil Peep, a nickname his mother gave him. He gained early attention with tracks like Star Shopping and The Way I See Things. One line from the latter stood out to fans. "I got a feeling that I'm not going to be here for next year, so let's laugh a little before I'm gone." It was one of his first songs, but after his death, the words took on a different meaning. Peep's music mixed raw vocals with lo-fi beats and deeply personal lyrics. His mixtapes, Lil Peep, Part 1, Live Forever, Crybaby, and Hellboy, touched on emotional pain and his use of substances. He also worked with groups like Gothboy Click and Skimma Posse. Peep was open about his life, and that made fans feel close to him. But it also made it hard to tell where the artist ended and the real person began. In Lil Kennedy, he rapped about his bleak outlook, saying he was destined to die and had never found meaning. In Falling For Me, he said, "I don't want to die, I don't want to OD." In 2017, he told Pitchfork that music was like wrestling. Artists had to become characters. But while some parts were exaggerated, he said much of what he rapped about was real. He spoke about dealing with depression and said he sometimes didn't want to wake up. Still, he refused help and relied on substances to cope. In August 2017, Peep came out as bisexual and became more outspoken online. Around this time, he dated actress Bella Thorne and later influencer Arzelia Rodriguez. Despite his rising fame, many fans noticed that his music still carried heavy sadness. That year, he released his first full album, Come Over When You're Sober, PT1. Songs like The Bright Side and Awful Things had clearer production, but the lyrics remained dark. In The Bright Side, he sang about his inner turmoil, expressing a longing for escape. On the day of his death, Peep posted videos on Instagram showing himself using various substances, including a cannabis concentrate and what he said were 6 alprazolam pills. He took a nap around 5:45 p.m. His manager checked on him twice, each time seeing he was still breathing. But by the third check, Peep was unresponsive. CPR was attempted and paramedics arrived, but it was too late. On December 8, 2017, the medical examiner ruled his passing an accident. The report mentioned fentanyl and alprazolam in his system, along with traces of THC, tramadol, and other substances. There was no alcohol. In 2019, Peep's mother, Liza Womack, filed a lawsuit against his management, claiming they encouraged substance use and ignored his mental health. The case dragged on for 4 years and was finally settled in 2023. His family now controls his music. After his passing, Peep's brother Oscar said being a rapper was like playing a character. Peep was proud that his music helped others, even if he himself felt lost. His lyrics, raw, direct, and emotional, now sound more like a journal than entertainment. He never pretended to be someone else. And maybe, through all his music, he was trying to say goodbye in the only way he knew how. It was June 18, 2018, in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Jose Dwayne Onfroy, better known as X-Temptation, had spent part of the day browsing motorcycles at Riva Motorsports, not far from Fort Lauderdale. At just 20 years old, he was one of the most streamed artists in the world. But at around 3:57 p.m., everything changed. As he was leaving the dealership, 2 men suddenly approached his car. Seconds later, Jose was gone. Months before this, Jose posted a video on Instagram that fans later found unsettling. In it, he spoke directly to the camera. He said that if anything ever happened to him, he hoped his life had at least helped 5 million kids, or given them answers or peace. He added that he would be at peace, knowing his message reached people who were struggling. In the video, he urged others not to be defined by their struggles. He told viewers not to let depression shape them, not to let the body define the soul, and reminded them they were worth more than they could believe. These unscripted personal words took on a deeper meaning after his death. Jose's rise to fame began in 2016, when his song Look at Me exploded on SoundCloud. His music was emotional and raw, and fans connected with how open he was about personal struggles. But his story was also filled with controversy. At 16, Jose was sent to a youth detention center after being found with a weapon. In 2016, he was arrested again for robbery and assault. Later that same year, he was accused of harming his then-pregnant girlfriend. Jose pleaded not guilty and, at the time of his passing, was still waiting for trial on several charges. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some believed he was trying to change and focus on the good in his music. Others could not look past the serious accusations. In a 2016 interview on the No Jumper podcast, Jose described an altercation with a cellmate during his time in juvenile detention. The story was violent and shocked many listeners. Yet he also spoke about growth. He released a music video in late 2017 that showed a white child being hanged, a disturbing scene meant to send a message about racial injustice. The video received backlash, but it showed how Jose tried to use art to talk about serious topics. His songs reflected deep sadness, anger, and loneliness. Many fans felt he truly understood them. In 2017, Jose posted online that if he ever passed away, he wanted music from fellow rapper Fredo Santana played at his funeral. Fredo had died at 27 from health issues. Jose admired him and seemed to reflect often on life and death. In early 2018, Jose's house arrest was lifted by a Miami-Dade court so he could tour and make money. Around this time, he spoke online about wanting to donate $100,000 to programs supporting people in difficult situations. While this donation was never confirmed, it showed the direction he wanted to go. On the morning of June 18th, he posted about planning a charity event. Hours later, he visited Riva Motorsports. According to witnesses, 2 men in hoodies arrived in a black Dodge Journey. As Jose got into his BMW, they approached. One of them was armed. He reached into the car and fired several times. Jose was hit and lost consciousness. The suspects grabbed a Louis Vuitton bag from the car and drove off. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, but he could not be saved. He was pronounced dead later that day. The Broward County Sheriff's Office opened an investigation and confirmed Jose's passing. They offered a $3,000 reward for any information that could lead to arrests. Fans across the world shared tributes. That Instagram video where Jose spoke about life and death was reposted everywhere. His words now sounded like a goodbye. Kanye West, Diplo, Travis Barker, and many others shared their thoughts. Jose had a strong influence on younger fans. Still, debates over his past continued. Some honored his art, others remembered the ongoing legal case. Jose's story was complex. He was young, conflicted, and emotional. But to many, his voice mattered. His final message lives on. Your mind is limitless. You are worth more than you can believe. It was December 8, 1980 in New York City. John Lennon, the former Beatle, had spent the day at the studio with his wife, Yoko Ono. The two returned home that night to the Dakota, their apartment building on the Upper West Side. Lennon had just turned 40 and was looking forward to a quieter life focused on his family and music, but those plans were never realized. Outside the Dakota, a man named Mark David Chapman waited. Just hours earlier, Chapman had approached Lennon for an autograph. Lennon signed a copy of his Double Fantasy album without hesitation. But when Lennon returned later that night around 10:50 p.m., Chapman stepped out again, this time with a weapon. He fired 5 shots. 4 hit Lennon. He collapsed at the entrance while Yoko Ono screamed. Lennon was rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, but by 11:15 p.m., he was pronounced dead. The world was stunned. But strangely, Lennon had seen something like this coming. Back in 1965, during an interview about the Beatles' future, Lennon predicted they would either die in a plane crash or be targeted by someone unstable. That comment wasn't made in passing. Lennon had long feared something would happen to him. His first wife, Cynthia Lennon, said he lived with constant fear, believing someone might target him. In 1966, a psychic even sent him a letter warning he could be harmed in the United States. This stuck with Lennon for years. Later in the 1960s, while experimenting with LSD, Lennon had what he believed was a spiritual experience. According to Tony Bramwell, a close friend, Lennon once gathered the other Beatles at Apple Records and told them, "I am Jesus Christ, I have come back again." The others didn't panic. Ringo simply said, "Right, let's go have lunch." At a restaurant, Lennon told a fan he believed he was Jesus Christ. The fan, though surprised, responded with admiration for his recent music. These unusual moments hinted at deeper concerns. Lennon frequently expressed to those close to him that he didn't expect to live a long life. He believed someone would eventually come after him and estimated he had only a few years left. 4 years later, his prediction proved true. Jack Douglas, who worked with Lennon in the studio, recalled that Lennon often made unsettling comments about his own death, suggesting it would happen soon and would be highly publicized. Despite Douglas's concern, Lennon continued to speak that way. He also became obsessed with recording everything, having journals and microphones documenting every moment, as if he knew time was running out. Just weeks before his death, he spoke to his half-sister, Julia Baird. He talked about a family reunion back in Rock Ferry, Merseyside, saying they'd all meet at Ardmore, a family house. He never made it. On the day he died, Lennon was in a good mood, finishing work on Yoko's song, Walking on Thin Ice. He left the studio, telling Douglas he'd see him in the morning. But that night, Chapman waited outside the Dakota. When Lennon passed, Chapman fired. An employee at the Dakota, Jay Hastings, recalled seeing Lennon collapse with blood coming from his mouth. Doctors at Roosevelt Hospital worked on him for 20 minutes, but his injuries were too severe. Chapman didn't flee. He stayed at the scene reading The Catcher in the Rye. He later said he wanted to be somebody and had planned the act for months. He was angry over Lennon's past statements and his fame. Chapman is still in prison today. 2 days after Lennon's death, Douglas arranged a small private memorial. Lennon was cremated, and although the location of his ashes was never confirmed, many believe Yoko Ono scattered them in Central Park, where the Strawberry Fields Memorial now stands. Lennon once said, "Living on borrowed time without a thought for tomorrow." That lyric, released after his death, feels like a quiet message from a man who had spent years preparing for the end he feared most. He was right.